Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Permission Granted Podcast. I'm here with Shelly and Eva, and Kim is having internet problems because there's crazy storms, so she's here with us in spirit. If she hops on, that'll be a nice surprise. So today we've got a really interesting topic for you because we're going to be talking about momentum and slowing down and how to set goals and integrate goals and look at what we've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked and all of that mumble jumbled into the fact that it is now September. Our kids have gone back to school or college or wherever they go. Our lives are back sort of on track with routine like they were when the kids were back in school last year. And yet it's fall, right? And then we're heading into winter, which is notoriously a time to slow down and cocoon. And then of course, January, everyone's on board setting goals. And yet we're all feeling this exciting, juicy time of setting goals now. And so we wanted to talk about this and bring this conversation to light because I've found the last couple of years, rather than leaving my goals for January, I'm actually setting them in September. And starting that momentum so that when January hits, I'm not restarting, I'm actually just coasting. And so topics on the table, ladies.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that energy. I love because it's the last quarter of the year and we see that same energy of sort of tying up loose ends and figuring out what we want next during that last quarter of the moon as well, where it's like, what am I going to do when that new moon hits? What am I going to do when January hits, right? What do I want to roll into that period with momentum towards, right? And as a procrastinator, I am typically behind the ball on my goal setting. So I get to this point in time and I go, oh my gosh, I've accomplished nothing, right? And that always feels really overwhelming to me. And then I'm also like you, I like to set my goals in the fall because it's my birthday. So it's kind of my new yearly cycle. So January is not really that big for me either. I kind of coast through that period of time too. But I get to this point and I go, oh my gosh, I've done nothing with this last year of my life. And I go into panic mode, right? But what I think is really important to see is that we have actually maybe not hit the goal that we intended when we first set out, but we've probably hit a ton of milestones that we haven't even stopped to go, oh, wow, I made it past that one. Oh, wow, I made it past that one. Right. So I think it's really important to sort of celebrate the wins that you've had so that you can get a better picture of what it is that you want to do moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Love that point. And Shelly hit it right on the head that we get to this point because typically everyone's last quarter of the year. And it's almost like you're waiting to see, did I hit all my goals? Did I set out to like knock all my intentions out of the park? And then we sit on the things that we didn't get done. And we overlook, like you said, all the little mini miracles that actually transpired around us. But we're so focused on the bigger picture that we don't see all of the blessings that we've had the entire year up until this point. And Kasha's point is amazing too, because I've noticed that now as the whole back to school, getting back to our normal routines, for me, I get excited and planning my 2019 or the year ahead at this time, because it seems like the perfect time for me to try and see and get ahead of the curve. And then if I have to course correct and kind of take something in to implement something back into it, I still have time. I'm not behind the curve. And I'm giving myself that grace to know and kind of ease myself and let myself get directed by the universe, so to speak, on where I want to go in my life and in my business. So starting it now at this quarter, at the end of this year, to jumpstart the next year, I think feels more comfortable in my skin than trying to jump right off the gate January 1st and then really not have a plan. Thing, right?
I agree. I think it's more natural to work with that cycle. And even if we look at, the rhythms of the earth, the seeds for next year are planted now, right? As flowers lose their seeds and they fall to the ground and then they get covered up by the leaves and all that. Why don't we work with it? Right? It never occurred to me until a couple of years ago when I said, this makes more sense.
Yeah. It
So,
does make more sense.
yeah. And then you can still, I think if we put in motion the things now, of course we don't know everything, right? And we're only showing up to what we can show up, and then the universe puts the wind in our sails. But if we put in motion the things now that we do know we want, and leave ourselves open enough to course correct as we go, then it's okay to take that rest during the winter, because then you can trust you've already done the work. You've already tilled your fields, you've harvested, you've tilled the field, you've planted whatever you can plant, and then you trust. And that's a big one for me, because it's like a life theme that I'm working on, is trusting not only that I've done enough, but then now I can hand over the baton to the universe, and it can do whatever the heck it does to make my seeds grow. So
Yeah.
it's this such a really juicy time, I find.
And I love it because I, like you, when it comes to trust and handing over that baton to the universe, it's kind of vulnerable to put yourself in that position. Okay, this is what my intentions are. This is where I want to go in my life and my business. I trust in myself, and then to toss it out to the universe, it's kind of scary because, like Shelly said, we get to this point in the year that we focus on the bigger things that we didn't get done. All these other little things did happen for us. So I'm trying to just allow the universe to do its thing and really receive what's meant to come my way at this particular point in time in my life and in my business. And those things that I didn't get to, not that they weren't meant for me, they just probably weren't meant to happen at this point in time in my life and in my business, and possibly might be shifted to the next phase, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I love the idea of getting out of the box of the calendar, right? The schedule and the calendar year. Like, it makes so much more sense to, like you said, go with the flow and the rhythm of the way that the world works. Like, the earth itself has this cycle, and our calendar doesn't follow on it. So why are we fighting that? That energy is already there for this amazing growth period and fertilization period, and like just allowing that energy to carry us through, instead of that overwhelm and pressure feeling of, oh my gosh, what happened, like the year's gone, right? Because ultimately we're just letting things go along the way, as you know, and we're playing with it, and we're making shifts, and we're changing lanes, and we're altering things as we go anyways. So it doesn't matter at what point on the calendar you started. Like, do what feels right to you.
Yeah, I love that, getting away from this whole, I want to say, corporate structure to life, right? Because why is it that the calendar has such a push? Because they all need to make sure their bottom line looks, green at the end of December. And so great, but does that work for us? And especially those of us who are, solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, yes, there's a push. Like, obviously you want to be abundant, you want to bring in the business and all that, but at what cost, right? Does it come at a personal cost to your sanity? You're feeling your best, you're being able to show up for you, your family, and your clients.
And it's funny that you mentioned that with the toss of the calendar. I've noticed, because I'm a mom of a teenager, and I've noticed since running my business and being home full time that being on an academic schedule has actually complemented me in my life and in my business, because like you said, I'm off the corporate hamster wheel. I'm not thinking of your picture like the rest of the world is like hustling and bustling. And like you said, now everything's back to school. Now I'm getting back into the momentum of things that I want to do going forward. And then this summertime, that was the time to kind of step back and really take it all in, to rest and have pleasure. And and kind of following that pattern, that ebb and flow, has been so much easier for me to actually dive in than to be with the overwhelm of like the corporate structure and the whole demands of the world. When we try and follow those type of realms, it's to see the difference of it.
I'm loving this conversation because it's making me realize just how the masculine and the feminine plays here, because the masculine corporate structure, calendar structure, like that's the box, right? That's the masculine. And the moon is that cyclical flow. And, you know, we're talking about bringing ourselves back to that flow and allowing that goddess energy to infuse us and letting us, you know, do our own thing in our own time, which lines up with the earth's own rhythm and cycle. Because the year, like you were just saying, all of what you were just saying about the time periods in the year fits in with the way that the lunar cycle works, and the same space as during those quarters of the cycle as well. So it's super
And
connected to that.
If coming from both different spectrums, this feels so much easier and light, and for me to be able to come up for air and enjoy it more than on the other spectrum.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because we're women, right? We are so much more connected to that feminine flow.
Absolutely.
And when we're trying to live in that masculine, it doesn't feel right. Right?
We connect to nature, when we connect to that cycle, when we connect to everything that's just like you said, so rich in the feminine energy, it is so much easier for you to take it all in and ease is easier to implement into your life.
Yeah.
Much better.
I get this image of all of us sort of pointing our canoe downstream now, because there's already, you know, there's so many decisions to make at any point in time, right? Not just for your business, but kids and family and spouse and personal stuff. And so it's often easy to get into that canoe and paddle upstream. But if you're working with the energy, with when it's easy, with when that, you know, the cosmos is aligned to make things easy, to help you let things go or bring new in, then you're pointing your canoe downstream. And then all you have to do is make decisions. I know it's not that simple always, but it makes sense in my head now that the reason I've been drawn, and it sounds like you ladies have been drawn to living more within this cycle, is because that's how we're meant to be. And the calendar really is just a construct that we've made to organize ourselves. And it is very helpful, but not when it ties our hands.
Absolutely. And I also
show off to do what's best for us. We don't always have to follow the calendar of what everyone else is following. We can create our ebb and flow when it comes to following calendar.
Yeah, totally. I also want to just bring it back to like setting goals and intentions and like allowing those things to happen in their own time. And at the beginning of the year, I still set intentions in January like everybody else, but I just let them kind of organically come to be as they will, right? And I had intended to start a yoga practice because I've been trying to get myself to do this for a long time. So I was like, I'm going to find a yoga studio. And I went out in the beginning of the year and I tried. I kept ending up at this studio every time it was closed. And I thought, okay, this isn't the right place. It's not the right time. I'm just going to leave it right now. For whatever reason, every time I show up, it's closed. So I was just talking with a friend of mine. She's got a line on a different studio. We're going to go together. It's happening now. And it's the perfect time for me because I've got my work schedule sorted out. I've got the time in my life and I can space things out. I can go 3 times a week. I can make it really beneficial for me, right? So back then it wasn't possible. It would have been a wasted investment and I would have been really upset with myself for having done it, right? So even though it's happening now and it's like, oh, it's almost the end of the year, I haven't done it yet, I'm so useless, right? Like we could totally do that, but I'm not doing that because I'm like, yes, it's happening in the perfect time, right? So even when it's not business related, even when it's just a little personal goal, you can achieve it at any time point throughout the year. Or next year even, give yourself the grace to extend the timeline on it if it feels good to do so.
For it to come into our world, exactly like you said, it doesn't have to be a definitive point between, the second or third or fourth quarter of the year.
Yeah.
Possibly, like I said earlier, it probably wasn't meant to happen at this time in your life this year. It's probably meant to happen later on.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's something that's escaping you. It's just probably not your time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and it doesn't mean it won't be.
Exactly. So should we hand out some permission slips, ladies?
Yeah.
Permission granted to release the pressure, ditch the overwhelm, and just allow your own rhythm to come through.
Permission granted to course correct those goals and those intentions and those things that you want to get done within the realm of that year, that when you start out and it doesn't seem like it's something that's working for you, allow the things to just show up as they need to and celebrate those small wins, and don't always focus on the bigger picture of your goals and your intentions.
Yeah. Permission granted to stop using the calendar as a yardstick because it's arbitrary. Allow yourself to flow with what feels good for you, and look at all the things you've already done right instead of thinking that the calendar is telling you you haven't done enough.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also draw your attention below the video. There's a link to our Permission Granted Manifesto, which is a set of statements and beliefs that we have put together for you that will help you get into that flow and that place of giving yourself permission to be more of who you truly are instead of all the other things that we do to beat ourselves down. So we invite you to subscribe to that, and that way you will never miss a notification of when the next episode comes out. And thank you, Shelly and Eva, for joining me today. We missed Kim for sure, but I'm sure she'll be with us on the next one. And we wish you all an amazing week.